They spend it, instantly, repeatedly, without thinking, and then they wonder why their bank account looks the same as it did 3 years ago, why the hustle never compounds, why they work harder every year and somehow fall further behind. This is not an income problem. This is not a discipline problem. This is an identity problem. There is a specific difference between the man who earns money and the man who is architected to hold it. That difference is not found in a spreadsheet. It is not found in a strategy. It is found in the subconscious operating system running underneath everything. Here is what your financial life looks like when that system is wired for consumption. You earn money, sometimes real money, but it moves through you like water through open hands. You tell yourself next month is the month. You tell yourself one more raise and you will finally start. You buy things that feel like a rival. A new phone, a better car, clothes that perform success before you have built it, and the account stays flat, month after month, year after year. The number barely moves. This is not failure. This is a man whose internal architecture was never built to hold what he makes. Because the same drive that was built to make you accumulate, to compete, to build, to create leverage, is being discharged before it ever becomes capital. Every man carries a reservoir of directed force. The 0.1% man understands this at a level most men never reach. He understands that wealth is not earned first. It is contained first. A man who cannot hold his internal pressure, who releases it the moment it builds, will never accumulate enough force to deploy it at the level that changes his life. He earns things. He does not own things. He feels potential. He does not become it. He lives permanently at the edge of who he could be, close enough to see it, far enough away to never close the gap. Here is the gear shift most men never make. Wealth is not a financial problem. It is a containment problem. The man who cannot hold pressure inside himself cannot hold capital in his account. The man who reacts to every internal impulse will react to every external trigger. This is not about discipline. Discipline is a symptom of identity. This is about the architecture underneath, and until that architecture is rebuilt, nothing above it permanently changes. Think of it this way: a river leaking through cracks in its banks will never build enough pressure to move anything. The same water, properly contained, becomes something that can power a city. That is the map of your financial life. The men who built generational wealth, the men who created leverage, shaped industries, left something behind. Were not men without desire. They were men who had learned to convert it. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years inside the lives of the wealthiest men of his era. What he documented was not a financial system. It was a psychological architecture. The consistent variable was not income. It was not opportunity. It was the ability to feel the pressure of desire and refuse to discharge it immediately. He called this transmutation, not the killing of drive, the conversion of it into directed output, into building, into capital, into ownership. This is not self-help. This is the operating system of the 0.1% man. Your account is not separate from your subconscious. When the most powerful force in your psychological architecture, the urge to consume, to relieve, to discharge, is released every time it builds, your capacity for wealth accumulation resets to zero. Not because you lack opportunity, because the container has never been built. James Pennebaker at the University of Texas spent decades studying men who converted internal pressure into sustained output. His finding was consistent. The men who built the most in any domain were not men with less desire. They were men who had learned to hold it longer before it became action. This was not discovered in a laboratory. It was practiced across every civilization that produced lasting wealth, and the men who understood it built things that outlasted their own lifetimes. Andrew Carnegie arrived in America at 12 years old. His father had lost his trade to the steam engine. The family had nothing. Carnegie went to work in a cotton mill. Winding yarn 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He earned $1.20 a week. He saved a portion of every cent. His mother's rule, the one she repeated until it became reflex. He did not spend his way into wealth. He built his way in, layer by layer, decision by decision, one investment compounding into the next. By the time he sold Carnegie Steel to J.P. Morgan in 1901, the transaction was worth over $300 million, a figure equivalent to hundreds of billions in today's economy. The man who started as a cotton mill boy became one of the wealthiest human beings who ever lived. John D. Rockefeller was born the same year. His father was a traveling salesman, absent, unreliable, often gone. Rockefeller went to work at 16 as a bookkeeper. He found it, by his own account, genuinely delightful. Not because numbers were exciting, because numbers meant control. And a man who controls his numbers controls his outcomes. He tracked every cent that moved through his hands, not because he was told to, because he understood that money watched is money that stays, and money that stays is money that grows. He became the first billionaire in American history, not through a windfall, through an internal system that refused to leak what it had built. The pattern repeats across every era. Thomas Corley studied 233 self-made millionaires over 5 years. 65% had built at least 3 income streams before reaching their first million, not by earning more, by deploying what they already held. The men who shaped outcomes were not the highest earners. They were the men whose identity was wired to build, not consume. So what actually shifts when a man rebuilds his internal architecture around wealth? The first thing you notice is not money. It is pressure. The urge to spend, which once felt like relief, begins to feel like a signal. The pull to consume becomes the cue to contain. This is the mechanism the 0.1% man has encoded that separates him completely from the 99. It is not willpower. It is a rewired default. Earned income with no container becomes comfort. Earned income with identity architecture becomes capital. When that money moves toward assets, toward ownership, compounding vehicles, things that pay you back, the subconscious begins to update its definition of what you are. The Millionaire Next Door research by Thomas Stanley and William Danko found that most self-made millionaires saved 20% or more regardless of income level. Not when it was easy, not when there was leftover. First, always, automatically. That is not a financial habit. That is an identity encoded through repetition. Every time you feel the pull to spend and choose to stack instead, you are not practicing discipline. You are laying down new subconscious architecture. You are becoming a different man, not the man who earns and releases, but the man who earns and builds. As that capital accumulates, you will notice the quality of your thinking change. You move slower on decisions. You stop reacting to every immediate offer. You begin to see what men with nothing cannot see. That this game is not about what you earn this month. It is about what you own in 10 years. J. Paul Getty, once the wealthiest private citizen on earth, said that he would rather earn 1% from 100 men's efforts than 100% from his own. That is not a financial strategy. That is the thinking of a man whose identity had fully shifted from earner to owner. 3 years from now, you will make decisions differently, not because you read about it, because the architecture will have already changed. This is not about what you stop buying. It is about who you become when you stop leaking. Most men will spend their entire lives earning real money, real effort, real hours, and they will have nothing to show for it. Not because they failed to work, because they were never built to hold what they made. And they will wonder, every few years, why they are still in the same position, why the effort never compounds, why the account never reflects the work, why the urgency they feel every January is gone by February without explanation. You are not that man. Not because you were born differently, because you now understand something most men never will. The money you earn is not the point. What happens inside your architecture in the moment before you feel the urge to spend it, that is the point. Research shows that 80 to 90% of American millionaires are entirely self-made. Not inheritance, not luck, not timing. A subconscious operating system rebuilt decision by decision to contain instead of release, to build instead of consume, to become the owner rather than the earner. The man who rebuilds his internal architecture around wealth, who becomes the container before he tries to fill it, operates at a level that most men never access, not because he earned more, because he was built differently on the inside. The difference between those two men, made quietly, consistently, without announcement, is everything. You are not a man who leaks his financial power. You are a man who builds